from the Don and Lorena Meyer studio at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln College of Journalism and Mass Communications, this is Nebraska Nightly.
Good afternoon and welcome to Nebraska Nightly. I'm Bella Pitts.
And I'm Evan Donlinger. This is our top story tonight. After a heated argument between Trump and Zelensky, Lincoln's Ukrainian community is making their voices heard. Nebraska Nightly's Jackson Ingolstad was at one of the recent protests.
Between Trump, Vance, and Zelensky, it left many feeling disappointed, disrespected, and hurt, including the thousands of Ukrainian Americans who reside here in Lincoln.
I felt the same way when I heard that, Ukraine was attacked, because it feels like we are back to a square one.
Ivan Karpyuk is one of the many Ukrainian Americans who you can find standing outside of the state's capital every Saturday. These Ukrainian Americans and others have been doing this ever since the war began 3 years ago.
We're gathering here just to remind people of Nebraska, people of Lincoln, that the war is still going in Ukraine.
A single person could even feel how we felt. It just doesn't let you live your normal life.
If you're from Nebraska, you know we have some extreme weather. Cold, hot, hail. But these people's dedication to help out Ukraine prevails, for they have shown up every single time since 2022.
Because our soldiers, they fighting for Ukraine, for freedom in Ukraine. It doesn't matter what the weather is. So we have to fight for them in a prayer.
And while the war is far from over, this community still makes the most out of their everyday lives.
We're like family down here every Saturday. Not only here, but we meet together to eat and have coffee and fellowship with one another.
And as long as the war is going on, we can expect hope from this community. Jackson Ingolstad, Nebraska Nightly.
Fallout from the explosive White House meeting continues as Vladimir Zelensky meets with European leaders. CNN's Julia Benbrook reports.
Friday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was here at the White House to discuss the war in Ukraine. But the meeting was cut short after an Oval Office sit-down turned heated.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now,
Trump administration officials have continued criticizing Zelensky days after the blow-up in the Oval Office.
What we don't have right now is President Zelensky saying, I am ready to take the steps necessary and have the conversations necessary and make the compromises necessary to end the fighting.
And in a Truth Social post Monday, Trump reacted to an AP headline that quoted Zelensky, saying an end to the war, quote, is still very, very far away. Trump wrote, this is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer. European leaders held an emergency summit in London on Sunday to rally support for Ukraine. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer told reporters that he is working with France and a small number of other nations to craft a plan to stop the fighting, which would then be presented to the United States. Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron both visited the White House last week and stressed the importance of security guarantees from the United States to ensure Russia keeps its promises if there is a peace agreement. All of this is happening just after the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. At the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Turning to weather now, Nebraska continues to be on the fence in terms of which season it is. Looking at our current conditions, the wind and rain forecasted for tonight have begun to make their way into the capital city. We are seeing gusts reaching a consistent 30 to 35 miles per hour, with some reaching up to 60 miles per hour. As the rain picks up and possibly turns into snow, a few weather advisories have gone into effect.
A high wind warning is currently in effect until noon tomorrow, with wind gusts consistently reaching the 50 and 60 mile per hour marks. In less than 2 hours at 6 p.m., a winter weather advisory will go into effect until 3 a.m., calling for total snow accumulation between 1 and 3 inches, with wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. A hazardous weather outlook will also continue to be in effect the remainder of this week, as a possibility of thunderstorms and snow will linger into the weekend.
Looking at tonight, it's going to get chilly again with the potential snow in the capital city. Most of the precipitation looks like it will accumulate before midnight, with lingering snow and rain showers into tomorrow morning. Taking a glance at our week ahead, the uncomfortable weather will stick around until Saturday, when it might finally warm up enough to get softball and baseball's home series in, and take a peek at the forecast for the start of next week, finally reaching the 70s. So don't put the coat away just yet, but we will eventually get those warm spring days after a final bout with the cold.
I'm sure we all have spent some extra time outside the last colder. For Nebraska's ice fishing, for Nebraskans who like to go ice fishing, the change in weather can mean dangerous things. Nebraska Nightly's Sophie Farrell has more on how fishers can stay safe. Sophie?
Within the past week, Nebraska has experienced a nearly 70-degree spike in temperatures. While many see this as the start of outdoor activities, the ice fishing community views it as an abrupt end to theirs. While shopping online for tackle, Daryl Bauer realizes that his ice fishing season is likely over.
The nice afternoons are good, but for us ice fishermen, it's the end of a season. We got to wait till next year.
Spikes in temperatures this extreme can quickly melt ice on lakes, so Bauer takes precautions before heading out.
It's a sharpened chisel on one end of a bar, and I literally strike the ice with it then as I walk out.
Now, after nearly a week of these warm temperatures, Bauer believes the ice fishing season has likely come to an end in the Lincoln area.
Nebraska's a big state, and our weather can vary a lot from one end of the state to the other. And generally, as you go west and north, you'll find the winters are colder and they have more ice and their season lasts a little bit longer.
So even though swimming in lakes may come sooner than ice fishing on them again, it's still important to remember your ice fishing safety tips. But with Nebraska weather, we never know. Sophie Farrell, Nebraska Nightly.
For more information on fishing or fishing safety tips, visit outdoornebraska.gov. This has been an important week for student government at UNL. ASUN held their Committee of Fund Allocations Town Hall meeting this past Tuesday. The Union, Transit Services, University Health Center, Campus Recreation, and University Program Council all saw budget increases, anywhere from 1% to 5%. The Nightly Nebraskan didn't request an increase in budget, rather they requested the same amount from the previous year. The paper is in good shape thanks to its digital advertising, but still get 34% of their budget from student fees. In a turn of events, after every budget being approved unanimously, it was the ASUN's own budget that sparked debate. ASUN requested a 12% increase to their budget, but received backlash from 2 CFA members. Jack Burgess voiced his disapproval of the budget, while Joel Henson rebutted.
Been running, right, by utilizing this reserve account as a way to subsidize their budget year after year after year is not a sustainable model.
We don't have specific ideas of how we're going to cut costs yet, and if we just say we're going to cut costs and then can't figure it out next year, that means that it's going to cause a 20 to 30% increase. And
Next up, President Trump addresses Congress tonight.
And we will look at the celebration that was held on campus for the Japanese holiday of Hinamatsuri when we come back.
Social media is a daily part of many college students' lives, something we've become used to, but it can also be overwhelming and draining. Studies show that taking regular breaks from social media reduces stress and improves mental health. Too much screen time has been proven to increase anxiety, while stepping away helps you reconnect with the world around you. Take a break. Protect your mental health.
Many of the brands you love don't love animals like you do. Look at the labels of products you use for a bunny logo signifying they don't lab test on animals. Check the label for those who aren't able. Start making the shift by visiting crueltyfreekitty.com today.
Welcome back to Nebraska Nightly. Tonight, President Donald Trump will make his joint remarks to Congress, required by the Constitution, in lieu of a traditional State of the Union address. Despite calling it something else, the remarks will still be carried live on the major television networks, virtually indistinguishing these joint remarks from the traditional State of the Union address delivered by every president, dating back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt's first address in 1934. In his remarks, Trump will review his actions from the last 7 weeks and continue to lay out his plans for the next 4 years. Following Trump's address, Democrats will send Michigan Senator Elisa Slotkin to provide a speech in response.
The Kawasaki Reading Room hosted a celebration yesterday for the Japanese holiday known as Hinamatsuri, also known as Girls' Day. It's a time for families to wish for the health and prosperity of their daughters by displaying Hina dolls, meant to watch over the girls and absorb any negative energy.
I'm learning this as I'm here, but I really like the significance of how this is for girls and especially for women nowadays.
The Kawasaki Reading Room celebrated with free tea and Japanese snacks for guests, as well as a crocheting project.
Coming up in sports, 3 Husker women's basketball players earned Big Ten honors.
And Nebraska softball has their home opener coming up later in the week.
Welcome back to Nebraska Nightly Sports. I'm your sports anchor, Bridger Cruz. Nebraska basketball took a tough loss last Saturday at home against Minnesota, 67-65. The Huskers look to rebound tonight when they take on Ohio State. Now, head coach Fred Hoiberg took questions from the media today, and this is what he had to say about the upcoming game against the Buckeyes.
You know, I thought our edge defensively, I know I talk about that and I use that word a lot, but our edge in the second half was where we needed it, and we did a good job of coming away with a lot of those 50-50 balls.
Nebraska heads to Columbus in desperate need of a win, then find themselves at home taking on the Iowa Hawkeyes on senior night this Sunday. Both games necessary wins if Nebraska wants a chance to get into March Madness. Now let's take a trip down the street, away from the court and onto the softball diamond, where we take a look at Nebraska softball preparing for their home opener. Now, Nebraska softball hosts Northern Colorado this Thursday for their home opener, and it was planned to be a doubleheader, but it had been switched to a single game due to forecasted bad weather. The lone game is planned to start at 2:30 p.m. and all games were called off on Friday. Games will resume on Saturday with Northern Iowa at 11 a.m. Then Nebraska takes on South Dakota State at 1:30 p.m. on Sunday. Rounding out the weekend, it will be Nebraska taking on Northern Iowa at 4 p.m. Central Time. Head coach Rhonda Revelle took questions from the media today and had this to say about getting to play at home for the first time this season.
On the road for 4 weekends. It felt nice just to even get on a bus and drive to Wichita last weekend after crisscrossing the country. You know, I'm hopeful that by the weekend we have decent weather and so the crowd can be out there and not wrapped up in blankets and drinking hot chocolate and just trying to get through it with us. So it's always nice. I always feel great when we have a pretty decent temperature where our fans can enjoy the game.
And as one season begins, another one ends. The Nebraska women's basketball team received their Big Ten postseason honors, and the recipients were Britt Prince. Now, she received all Big Ten freshman team honors and honorable mention all Big Ten. Callan Hake was a team sportsmanship honoree, and Alexis Markowski became the first ever Husker to win 4 first or second team all-conference honorees. Now the team looks ahead towards the Big Ten tournament, where they take on Rutgers in the first round of the tournament Wednesday, March 5th at 4 p.m. Now, guys, taking a look at sports, we've talked about basketball, softball, and then women's basketball, but baseball, the game tomorrow canceled due to inclement weather, which is quite a shame.
It really is a shame. I personally was excited to watch it, but the next couple weeks we'll have fun games as well.
Absolutely. The next couple weeks of baseball and softball, and then you have basketball starting to get into Big Ten tournaments. A huge week for Husker sports all over the country.
Yeah, fingers crossed for both those teams.
Yes.
State capitals are more than a meeting place for government's bodies. They serve as a focal point for culture, history, and economic growth.
Wallet Hub compared all 50 states to determine which state capitals make the best homes. Nebraska Nightly's Jackie Rios Rodriguez has more one where Lincoln stands in that list.
State capitals can make some of the best and worst places to live. While some foster tourist attractions and create world-class universities, others struggle financially. Wallet Hub looked at affordability, economic well-being, education and healthcare, and the quality of life. Lincoln was ranked 6th on the list. According to the study, Lincoln ranked 11th in affordability, 16th in economic well-being, 17th in quality of education and health, and 20th in the quality of life. The capital's tourism supervisor Roxanne Smith said Lincoln is a great place to live because there is a diverse population with activities for everyone.
Ranking 6th, I think it's great. It's great indeed. It's safe, it's easy to get around, it's clean. I think there's a sense of pride in Lincolnites and the community.
University of Nebraska-Lincoln sophomore Olivia Schultz said living in Lincoln has given her a chance for a good education and career.
I would say that it's the opportunities that I get that I wouldn't be able to get in my hometown. The stores that we have, the jobs that we have.
Smith added that housing the legislature and universities in Lincoln impacts the way people vote.
It might be possible to live in a small town and not be as directly impacted by what goes on in the legislature, but as a city, a lot of the things that the legislature does directly impacts some of the larger communities in Nebraska.
UNL pre-medicine major Alyssa Stevens said the Capitol is known as a trademark.
I feel like it kind of brings like unity with people, and like, I don't know, I feel like whenever I pass with like my family or something like that, like it's always like, oh, there's the Capitol, like it's like kind of cool. People like know the places with capitals, so it's kind of nice. It's kind of cool.
While living in Lincoln means visiting local shops and attending big universities, Schultz and Stevens agree that we must pay more attention to poor communities and increase diversity. Reporting for Nebraska Nightly, I'm Jackie Rios Rodriguez.
As weather continues and to worsen today, let's take a final look at the rest of the week.
Again, the weather will not be as spring-like as it was last week, with rain and snow continuing throughout the rest of the week. Highs will creep into the mid-40s on Thursday, but will drop back down to the high 30s before that warms up, returning into the weekend.
Thanks for tuning in to Nebraska Nightly. We'll be back Thursday with a sports update.
Have a good evening and stay warm.